Yo. What's good, people? We're back for another Quality Over Quarantine. The feedback has been amazing. The support has been amazing. So thank you to all you lot. Yesterday's video interview was crazy. It was appreciated. I've had a lot of people hitting me up, telling me all different stories about Blade, so it's been cool. We're gonna keep things moving. Actually, before we start keeping things moving, can I just remind you lot, please share these videos, man. When we're live, please share them. It makes a massive difference, as we saw yesterday. And please subscribe again. It makes a massive difference. So today, you already know what time it is, man. This is gonna be an interesting one because I haven't spoken to Tommy in a little bit of a minute. So yeah, man, let's introduce the Don, man. Mr. Tommy Evans. You say it, man.
Flattery will get you everywhere, sir. How you doing?
Hey, listen, man. I owe you a lot, man. I owe you a lot. So there's always gonna be a lot of flattery. Always gonna be a lot of flattery. How you been, though, man?
I've been good, man. Just enjoying the sunshine, man. Yeah. So we've been blessed in this unique period of history to have abnormally good weather.
It's mad, like what you just said, like literally just before we started recording, and you were saying about we're in a unique time of history, and it's like it's actually so mad because it's like no one's ever been here before, and you know, like you play out scenarios in your head about what will happen when it all goes mad, and no one predicted this. No one thought we'd be in a situation.
Nah, completely, man.
So how have you been? Like, how have you been handling the lockdown?
Do you know what? I just try and stay positive. And sorry, I was just like trying to position. I was having a flashback to Teddy Riley and Babyface with some technical. Like trying to just figure out right, left, right. So
yeah, we got you.
I'll get there in the end, man. I'll get there in the night. I'm still there we go. Bear with me, the people at home. There you go. You wouldn't think I got a PhD, man. Still trying to get to grips with the basic rudiments of the technology. But yeah, I think it's just a case of staying positive in this time period. You know, a lot of the circumstances are beyond our control. So, you know, my outlook is trying to, do what I can within my sphere of influence, you know, my square block of kilometers or meters or whatnot. And it starts within, obviously. So, you know, if you try, obviously easier said than done, but if you try and look at things in a positive way and see how you can affect a change, you know, in yourself first and then maybe in others, then you can try and make the best of these turbulent times. The reference there to the album.
It's funny. We're gonna get there, yeah. But before we even get there,
cool.
it's funny you talking about how to deal with this or how you're dealing with it. And, we both work with young people, and we both you know what I mean. We're both in that environment, and it's weird because a lot of my young people, they're just treating this like it's nothing. They're just out on the road doing their thing. And I was thinking back to when I was young, and I'm trying to think, if I was 15, 16, 17 and someone said, yeah, you got to stay home, like would I be doing that? And it's like, I want to ask you, what would you be doing as a younger in this environment? You'd be handling it like very differently, right?
That's a good question. I guess it depends what period or epoch of my life we're looking at, and obviously I still consider myself a younger. Illusion and reality. In my own head, I'm still 17, but I was always a very studious sort of individual as a younger person, and I think I've been very fortunate on that front in that I had family support. You know, my mom was an English teacher, so I grew up in an environment where I'd read a lot.
Okay.
And I'd be very content keeping my nose in the book. And maybe that's, you know, part of the trajectory that I'm, you know, on to this day in terms of using language to express myself and communicate with people. So I guess, you know, I can't front like I was a bad boy or anything like that, because, you know, it'd be disingenuous of me, and people, you know, see through that immediately. So, yeah, I guess I've always had quite a diligent work ethic, again, instilled in me from my mum, who herself had a very, you know, strong work ethic. So, yeah, I guess I would have just been making the best of it in my own way.
Where's that?
That's a great question.
We go back quite a long way.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely.
I think the last time I was going through, I was looking for pictures, obviously for the promo shot. So I was going through your Instagram, and then it popped up the picture of us when we did the video in and to me it was like, oh, that was the other day. I was like, no, that was 2016. Like it was a little while ago. Like
yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how time passes? You know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. How when you're younger in life, you have less accumulated years of experience to draw upon as a frame of reference.
Yeah.
So say you're in your late teens, early 20s, you know, you've got 2, 3, 4 years of adulthood to explain your current circumstances. When you're 25, when you're 30, now you've got another bank of 5 years, another 5-year cycle. So now you're up to 10 years, you know what I mean?
Right.
So for those of us who are still in our late 20s,
of course.
of course. You know, we've got that like 10-year, give or take a year or two, body of experience to draw upon to explain our life circumstances and look back at, you know, what has happened and how that can, you know, you can position what's going on now within that framework. So, yeah, it's just really interesting. I read as well a few years ago how when you're younger, time seems to pass slowly because a year constitutes a smaller portion of your life. So again, when you're 10, a year is 1/10 of your life.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the time passes more quickly? I don't know. Maths was never my strong point. Maybe any of our mathematicians and statisticians watching can explain it. But, you know, when you're 20, a year now is 1/20th of your life. When you're 30, it's 1/30th. So time is relative.
Yeah.
You know, like it moves differently. And obviously, the human mind is an interesting thing, and we recreate our past in our own consciousness. There's a book I want you to remember, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Okay.
If you haven't check that book out. I think the author is a guy, I think he's called Kaufman. Double check, but I think he won the Nobel Prize for that book. In collaboration with another writer. But one of the things they talk about, even in the opening chapters, how we might look at ourselves as human beings as these very rational, sober, you know, considered objective individuals, but we're prone to all sorts of biases, and you know, we're very much shaped by our socialization. So
you've
perception.
You've had I guess, you know what's funny actually, so we going back to when we met, my first, obviously I knew, actually, you know what, I think the first time I heard you was on, oh man, what song was it? It was what song was it, man? It was there was two versions. It was a remix. Chester P. Kaiser.
Don't think. Oh yes, I was on the original version of the trilogy.
That's it.
So that's myself, Jest, and Ricochet, and then the remix was Kaiser, Chester, and Jest. Yeah, that's right. So I was on the original version.
So you was a like a name back then when I was first coming into the game. It's funny, all these interviews I'm talking about around the time when I kind of got into meeting a lot of you guys, and me and Answer started doing the mixtape series.
That's right, legendary.
Right. And so I think that I'm pretty sure what had happened. You were the first person to be like, "Yo, do you wanna like come do a show with me?"
Wow.
So I think my first supporting show for like a proper artist was for you, and I think it was in Cambridge.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, man, it was like it was a deep one, and like you've always been, I don't know, man. We just cool to hit off straight away, innit, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you, likewise, man. I appreciate the kind words.
So tell me about like your where were you at that space at that time?
Wow.
Musically,
yeah, that's a good question.
And just where were you in life? Like I don't even like how old were you then? Like, well,
say again, sorry?
Yeah, actually, no, forget that. We're not doing ages. But you were young. You were young then, because I was like, I was in my early 20s. I might have been like 19, 20.
So I was probably 16 or 17.
Yeah, so you were younger than me. Yeah. So you were like, but where were you at that time in your life and looking back?
Yeah, that's a good question. Looking back to that sort of time period, I was just very, very much immersed in the UK hip hop scene, living my dream. It's deep because this is something as well I've thought about a lot. As you mature, and hopefully, someone we mature, not just physically, but intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, etc.
Yeah.
Then you cease to become the center of your life narrative. So when you're younger, you're literally, it's like I'm going to use a astrophysics analogy now. I love astrophysics, like geek out and that sort of stuff. So it's a Ptolemaic model of the universe. So the Earth is at the center of the universe, and the sun orbits it and the other planets.
Right.
But as you mature, then you realize that you're not the center of the universe. Not like it's it can be in a narcissistic way, but it's just that having a life understanding, added responsibilities, etc.
Right.
So as you mature, then one shifts to a Copernican model of the universe in which the sun is at the center and now you're orbiting it.
Okay.
So when I was younger and my first iteration in the industry, then it was literally just rap 24/7.
Yep.
Like that's all I thought about. And there was a positive to that in that it meant I was so driven and ambitious and diligent in my work ethic that, like I said, I got to live my dreams. The downside of it was that I didn't necessarily have an equilibrium, a balance in my life, because it was literally just 24/7 rap.
Yeah.
So, the people I'm working with are rappers, producers, etc. But also the people I'm socializing with are rappers and producers.
Right.
The spaces I'm going to, studios, radio stations, festivals, shows, nightclubs, etc. Those places where I'm working are also the same places where I'm socializing.
Yeah.
So it meant that immersion enabled me to really, like say, pursue my career professionally, live the dream, make contacts, have that innovative artistry. But it meant there was no real escape route from it. There's a little nod to yourself there if you picked up on that. Anyway, little references there. And there's something that I grappled with a lot of time. And there's someone who I just really respected at the time for seeming to, they had that balance, which was Young Essa.
Yeah.
And he was someone who always had a fantastic work ethic. But he had, a life outside of music, and like he's a very, polite gentleman.
Yeah.
Very, cultured. You know what I mean? Reads very well. Has a lot of diverse interests,
Speaks
and
a lot of
he had
languages.
activities.
Yeah.
He had a lot of things going on outside of music as well. Obviously, he was studying law at the time. So he was someone who I'd always say, like, bro, how'd you do it? How do you find? He was always passionate about cooking as well. You know what I mean? So he sort of taught me how to cook actually.
I didn't even know that about him, man.
Yeah. So Chef Wige, big up, man. So I actually lived with him for about a year or two. So he was someone who had that balance. So I think the difference between then and now is that I have that balance. I have that equilibrium now, whereas in that time I didn't.
Right.
But again, there's a plus and a downside to it. So when I look at my life experiences in my first iteration in the UK hip hop industry, or cottage industry as it was, it was very much an oscillating wave of highs and lows, valleys and peaks. So the peaks were very, very high, but the lows were very low as well. Whereas now I think the oscillating wave is less extreme. So I'll try and get my finger in a more balanced position. There you go. So the wavelength is more disciplined, shall we say. So it means the lows aren't as low, but because you have that added maturity and you have a life outside of, then it's not the be all and end all. Like, trust me, I give the entirety of my being to this. Yeah. But I have a life outside of it. I remember, I don't know if you've seen the film about Cristiano Ronaldo. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
Came up at 2015. I mean, like one of the greatest, if not the greatest footballer in the world, who's, just his level of commitment to his profession is incredible. But in that film, like his mum, is having all these like health issues, and she's having to take all this medication, and she's getting like, she can't even watch her son play. She can't enjoy it. She's getting so stressed out. It's like, look, mum, it's just a game. And this is like, one of the greatest footballers ever. He's making millions off it. He's got the biggest social media following around the world. But he's got to that space where he can it's just a game. You know what I mean? It's like, so, for me, I'm maybe in that same sort of space where, like, I will just work my backside off for this, but I do have a life outside of it. Another thing I was just hearing the other day was an interview with Akon.
Right.
And he was talking about recording with Eminem and going into the studio with Eminem for the first time. And like, I think Akon showed up towards the end of the day thinking it's going to be like a long evening sort of thing, work through into the early hours of the morning. And Eminem's like, I'm going, bro. He's like, Akon's like, he literally treats it like a 9-to-5 job, comes in at 9, works solidly for 3 or 4 hours, takes his hour lunch break. And he was saying they were working on something, and Em's like, right, I'm off for my lunch.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, like, we're still working on the track. Do you want to just finish? He's like, no, I'm having my lunch. And Akon's like, all right, I'm just going to keep working because I'm in the zone and stuff. And played in the ideas. Eminem's cool. And then towards the end of the day, Eminem's recording. And then he's like, right, I'm off. And Akon's like, dude, like, you haven't finished your... He's like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. He's like, I'm going to go home and like play with my kids. You know what I mean? Obviously, Eminem's at a level where he can do that, but it's very, very interesting that he has that sort of disciplined approach to it. Maybe in reaction to some of the excesses in terms of earlier on in his career, where he's well documented, like trials and tribulations with certain substances and whatnot. So
but I think that's
maybe
right,
it's a response
man.
to that.
Like the point that you brought up is when we were coming up in the game. That was it. So you got this blinkered approach. I was I had an interview earlier, and I was saying what the difference between then and now. Me doing music. Music is something I do. I always be hip hop, but at the time, I was a rapper, and everything. My identity was wrapped up in being a rapper.
Yep.
And I didn't want to do anything outside of that would put me in a position where, nah, that's not rap. And it's funny because I my life went into a lot of different directions. It wouldn't have gone. It could have been a lot easier if I just said, "Nah, do you know what? I'm a father, husband, or whatever who raps." But my mindset was always, no, I'm a rapper first. I'm this first. That's my identity. And it meant everything. It meant everything. And the highs and lows were that, because something as simple as not getting put on a flyer for the first boom bap, like hurt me to my soul. Like I was vexed. Like I wanted to punch up, man. Like, what are you talking about? Whereas now I'm like, I wouldn't even care. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. And I guess that is only something that kind of comes with age. I want to keep it back though. I want to like, what was your... How did you, like, I don't know, did you get, like, in that time, when I'm talking about in that era, did you see yourself as like, or see it as a great time, as a golden era, and knowing that you are part of something big?
Wow, that's deep. I don't think I necessarily realized it at the time. It's definitely with hindsight. I was having this discussion with Young and SS, saying in many ways you don't know how good you have it at the time because you're so immersed in that space. And like I say, we're younger, we don't necessarily have a bank of data or a frame of reference in terms of years of life experience to draw upon.
True.
In my case, like I said, I didn't really have a life outside of music, not necessarily in like a super, super negative way, but I was just so immersed in it, in that bubble. But I think as well, there were certain challenges we faced then that we don't face in the digital streaming era in terms of releasing music.
Yep.
But then there were certain advantages that we had then. So let me sort of go into more details. So it was definitely a smaller scene.
Yeah.
And in many ways that meant you could establish your name more quickly if you had talent and work ethic and drive and 100%. The right connections. It was so much easier to manifest the signal through the noise. The challenge was we didn't have social media, and the main means of getting your music to audience was the traditional method through physically manufacturing. I was going to say CDs, forget that to begin with. It was vinyl. And the irony was I didn't even have a record player, so I couldn't even listen to my own stuff.
Same.
It was deemed like innovative that UK rappers start putting their stuff on CDs. What I mean? It was like 15 years too late. But and that number 15, that's the number I always said. I always felt that we were about 15 years behind the States in terms of our scene.
Yeah.
So there were many good things on that front. In our little cottage industry, you could go to any mad little town around the UK, and there's going to be, like 30 or 40 people, if you're lucky, 100, 200, 300, maybe even, that are fans of you and like are really passionate and will really like ride for you, man. Come out to the show and really just show you love, and especially outside of London. They were just so much more appreciative of hearing rappers from the UK. And I think they really, really felt an emotional empathy with you. They related to you in some ways, in a very intense way that not only would disorientate me, but make me feel a bit uncomfortable at times. Like
I know exactly what you're talking about. But you know what? That idea of being outside of London, I think, again, you were the first person, because sometimes I forget, man. Like we were like in that time, I was around you a lot, so we would be in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
But you were probably
completely.
You were definitely the first person to really open my eyes to, do you know what? Come outside of London and things are so different. Yeah. And because at the time as well,
totally, man.
We never had, like, we would have Kung Fu, every second Tuesday or whatever, and we would have other shows. There'd be mass and. Yeah, I mean, even I remember you coming to the Harrow shows a few times and all that kind of stuff. So we had even in our local areas, we had quite a lot, and it wasn't really hard for us to see, because the scene was small. So like it's so funny to say now, but we had foreign beggars come to Harrow. I mean, like it's crazy now, man. And like we had big artists, we had Black Twang come down, and in London again, it was like, this is our thing. Whereas outside of London, they weren't as used to having artists, so they were a lot more appreciative. And I think that's only really changed like in the last maybe 10 years, where you have a situation where some of the biggest artists don't come from London anymore. So now London are like, yo, when's Bugsy coming down? And you know what I mean? Like,
completely.
Things have switched like that. But I think in that era, you were one of the first guys to really just, let's get on the road and really move about, man. I think
I loved it, man. I mean, in part that's driven because I'm not originally from London, so I always had that mind state that there is a world outside London, and I completely get it. London is a global city, it's one of, like, I'm remembering back to my master's now, like this definition of global cities, and like, it's like a global city par excellence, and you've got the entire world in this city.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like when I'd go to America as well, like a lot of, and I'm not saying this in a disparaging way, I mean, I love America, I love the American people, but a lot of the people I met hadn't really traveled outside of America, the United States.
Yeah.
Because it's, the sole remaining superpower is defining global events. So in many ways, they didn't need to travel outside of America. Similarly, in London, the sheer size of it allows any subculture to thrive. Whatever you're into, there's enough people here that means it can flourish. So because I had that slightly different mentality, because I'm from Leeds originally, I was always, get those invitations to travel around the UK or even Europe or whatnot to perform. I was like, defo. Whereas sometimes it'd be even hard to get, rappers to even leave the ends to come record. Bro, it's a bit long and stuff.
100%.
You know what I mean? So, it was something that's fascinating. And also just touching upon, rappers from outside London. I'm from Leeds. I had to come to London to sort of make moves and stuff. Now, you've got Lady LeSure from the Midlands, like you say, Bugsy. It's just H, I mean? Yep. It's so incredible to see the audiences are just embracing, the diversity of accents, like regional experiences and whatnot. But again, look at America as a precedent. When an Outkast won, I think their first Grammy or whatnot, was that like 1995 or something like that? It took people, people were unaccepting of American rappers from outside of New York. Yeah. They had to get their head around rappers from LA, then rappers from like the South and whatnot. So it's a similar path or trajectory that's happened here. London is like the epicenter. But and it exerts its.
Like, is that?
I think it's just
a label thing or is it a people thing? Because I always feel like when you take gatekeepers and labels out of a situation, the people just go to what they like.
And
everyone finds a place.
I guess social media has sort of bypassed that as well. It means you
Yeah.
have a direct connection with your audiences. But there's so many factors. I mean, it probably merits like a PhD thesis in itself, but I think there is that geographical, historical, cultural, political thing. London is just the capital, so it's the biggest city, so there's always going to be that element that it drives things. You know, the BBC was here for me. It was only recently that I think they moved some of their studios up north to Manchester, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Channel 4 as well, I think, moved to Leeds or something like that. So, you know, outside of, rap and hip hop, there's that thing of like getting people's heads around, well, there is a world outside of London, and, you know, there's opportunities, you know, in other cities in the country. But yeah, it's great seeing that. I was reading some stats the other day how last year the 42% of streamed rap tracks in this country were actually British rappers, and that was up from 15% in 2015. So, you know, like you take young people,
it doesn't surprise
they're going to
me,
be listening to British rappers, you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, when we first started out, we were just such a niche. And now, you know, you can, you know, to see, you know, like Stormzy do Brixton Academy, or AJ Tracy and Lil Connor doing Ali Pali, you know, Stormzy doing a world tour, you know what I mean, before, you know, unfortunately got shut down. Like, this is just unprecedented for the UK. I mean, this wasn't happening like 10, 15, 20 years ago. So the growth is so encouraging to see, and I'm just so happy to see people do well, you know what I mean? Like, I'm vaguely acquainted with AJ Tracy because I'm from, like, you know, the same area and stuff. So, you know, I know him, you know, someone to say hello to and everything. So, you know, just to see him as someone who, you know, over the years, seeing around, you know, I'm based in Grove, innit? So to see his trajectory, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I just, you know, bumped into his, like, auntie the other day. She's like, oh, I was just with his mum the other day. We was talking about how well he's doing and stuff. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, for me, that's very a visceral, tangible, real world thing to see someone from the ends do well, man. Just more power. I'm just happy to see everyone do well. You know, I don't want to be one of these, like, that's something I always, like, was never down, like, bitter old rappers lamenting, you know, their failed careers and stuff. It's like, I am happy to see everyone do well, man. I want, you know, what I want for myself, I want for every other human being. I'm never going to begrudge any other person's success. I want to drag them down. You know, there's not like a finite amount of success out there. Like, there's enough for everyone. Yeah, so, you know, I wish well for everyone, man. Like, you know,
it's funny.
Hats off to them, man.
They're killing it, man. I had some talking about like guys coming up and the UK being where it is. A lot of what I do, especially working with young people, is observation. Yeah, and one thing I notice is, like, so we'll come into a session and I'll be like, yo, who's hooking up to the speaker, man? Play your music, innit? And it is so rare to find someone playing American music. You might get you might get the odd person play like a Drake song if a Drake song's big or something like that. But for the most part, it's all UK music. And not only is it UK music in a way whereas you're listening to their song, but it's also like an investment into the person as well. So it's all you'll get a conversation and they'll play Fredo or something, and something like, oh yeah, oh, that's my cousin, you know. Oh what, mine. And it's like there's so much investment into the acts as people, and again that's really how that's the engagement that you really want. And I think definitely, man, it's a beautiful thing to see. I was talking to one of my a younger artist who came up to me and he was like, playing me his music and stuff, and he was like, what do you think of it? And I was like, yeah, man, it's good, I like it. And he was like, but what should I do, like, what can I do to like get better and stuff? And I was like, you know what, I'm the wrong person to talk to, yeah, because I know, like, you're looking at me and you're like, oh, you got tracks or whatever, but I'm not the person you should be, like, number one, you have to have faith in yourself because you're the new up and coming generation. You're where the energy is, like, you got the energy. And I was like, you know what you need to do? Kill the teachers, burn the books. Like, you're the new generation, yeah. You got to take it yourself, because if I say I don't feel it, it don't matter if I don't feel it, man. I'm old and washed. Like, you got the new energy. You got to come through and do your thing. Like, I don't want you to look at me like, oh, that's the ceiling. I want you to be out there trying to bury me, man. Go in the studio, come out and bury me. And he was like, all right, yeah, cool. And it's like, I love seeing young artists come up and do their thing. Like you say, AJ Tracy, smashing, and
Incredible.
there's been a lot of other artists that we've come up around, and to see them do well, I love it. Like I love it. To me, it's like it's the best thing. Is I'm there like seeing Stormzy on the Brits, like I'm jumping up like it's me. Like I know him personally. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Did you do something with him for the when you like part of the ensemble or something a couple of years ago?
I was trolling.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. What happened? Yeah, he had bare men up there. That's how lies get spread. He had bare people out there with ballies in it, and I was like, I was one of them with a bally. Yeah. It was like, for real.
I was like, I'm so proud for you, man. Like, look how naive and trusting I am, gullible. But it's interesting you're saying about young people investing in the artist as a person, and I think it's that locality thing. So, when we're growing up, listening to Rakim, it ain't where you're from, it's where you imbibe all the cultural references of the area. So, when I've been to New York, I'm like, this is like,
100%.
or like, I recognize this song. I've spent quite a bit of time in Philly. So like, I was going around Philly with a rapper and she was like, that's like the spot that Beanie Siegel got like rushed by the cops on and stuff, what I mean? Like, so, there's the territory, the landscape, the terrain has all these stories and narratives embedded in it. So when you said Fredo, I'm just like, well, he's like up the road from me, like, like Mozart, 6th Avenue around there, you know what I mean? So like, that's like, I mean, I literally, where I'm at the moment is literally like a 5-minute drive, if that, from where I am now, you know what I mean, where he's from. So Harrow Road, you know what I mean? It's like, so, like it's very tangible and visceral for the audience. It's not an abstraction. You're not having to like use your imagination, like, what's it like on the other side of the Atlantic? It's like, when Yizzy's doing his Prince of Grime video, and he's like, he's got his
chicken,
got his chicken and chips. You know what I mean? But people, you can relate to it because it's like, I mean, even now I'm thinking, I might actually go for some chicken and chips after this, man. It's making me hungry, so you can relate. You know what I mean? So, and that's the beautiful thing of it. There's stories that young people are invested in, and it's deep. You're saying the young people you've met will just cite rappers from the UK as their, inspiration. I did something for the Bradford Literature Festival last year in like the summer. Lady of the Show played it as well, actually. And it was awesome. I was performing in this like classical old like Victorian theatre. It's just pure like 400 like young people, teenagers, and I did a whole thing as well, like a little like Q&A thing with them at the end and stuff, and just again just talking to them, vibing with them, just about who their influences are and who they rate, and obviously it's just fantastic because they're just they're people local to them. So I even brought out, there's a young lady called Masumba, check her out. Okay. Amazing rapper and singer, like just absolute prodigy guitar player as well. I brought her out to perform. You know what I mean? So for me, that was a highlight. I've always enjoyed working with that next generation of artists, and even like the album I just put out in the autumn, Anti-Fragile, other than the remix tracks, which, obviously, you blessed us with Michael Parkinson, other than the remix tracks, Men, which, you guys are on, and then Nine Senseis, where I had Archer from One Crew, and Breeze. Everyone else I work with, younger up-and-coming artists. The project, I'm literally just mixing now, and next album, you heard it here first. So I've released 2 singles off that. First single, the second single came out yesterday, actually, El Jefe. Every one of the artists on there are all, young up-and-coming artists. And I love it because there's a hunger. There's a love for the craft. People are eager to learn. They're willing to be coached. I'm not like, I'm not trying to micromanage or prescribe things to artists, but I just love trying to share that experience, expertise that I've built up over the years, and encouraging young artists, saying, you can do it this way and whatnot, helping them on their journey, man. So as someone like Blade, you interviewed him, like he was someone who, helped me, you know what I mean? So it's really important to give back.
100%.
So I love it, man.
I think like one thing I've kind of got, especially from watching guys who kind of helped me come up, is just that there's certain pitfalls that you're gonna fall into, and it's just guiding them to like, you can go that way, but I'm just gonna let you know there are a few problems you might run into, and I feel like that's kind of like one of the best things we can do. Another thing I find, just like what you said, young people, that their energy is just different, the buzz is just different. And there's two ways of dealing with it. I see, and you see it a lot in this industry, where you see artists kind of leech off that younger energy and try and take their vibe and run with it. And what I've always seen you do is always been like, nah, I'm taking that energy and I'm pushing you forward, like I'm raising you up so you can use the energy to come through. Yeah. And it's funny because the artists that last the longest, they're the ones who always do that. They're the ones who are always like, they bring the youngers through but don't stop, and they bring them through and like, yeah man, go and do your thing. It's a great thing to see, man.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, obviously I don't know personally, but Wiley is someone who's like, historically throughout his career, just given so many people, a platform to shine and whatnot.
As I was saying that, he was in my head because he's one of those guys who doesn't really get the credit he should get, because with him it's always swings and roundabouts. So he'll do like five good things and 6 things that kind of mess things up. But he's a person who personally has just done things for me that he didn't have to do, that helped me out a lot. So even when things happen that don't go the way I want it to go, I'm always just like, to be fair, he's helped a lot. And I think another thing as well, when you know someone's heart's in the right place, then it's like it is what it is.
Definitely.
So
it's interesting you say that. Go on.
No, go on, finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's very hard as human beings to read another person's intent. Like, all you can really go by is their actions, but deep down you don't really know their intent. And even I was just thinking something that happened to me this week, like just on a little creative business level, something that I wasn't too happy with, but I was like, this person has stuck with me throughout the years, and has been a friend throughout the years, and like gone out their way for me throughout the years. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt on this, even though it's something that's not necessarily to my pleasing. I'm always positive and proactive. I'll find a solution that means that no one's falling out, and it's all positive. I mean, it's a tiny little thing. It's not a biggie. So I think, I understand what you're saying. Like, sometimes you will overlook things because you think, well, we're all human beings at the end of the day. We'll have our strengths, our weaknesses, our positive, negative sides. But if you know someone's heart is in the right place, give them the benefit of the doubt, man.
I think also there's a level of like, when you're independent, and I don't just mean independent artist, but when you're an independent person, and my thing is always this: I'm walking down this path and I have a place I'm going to. Certain people are going to come, they're going to help me along the way. If they decide to try and help, I'll take their help. That's cool. If they then flake out, that's all good as well. I'm still going where I'm going. So again, exactly. It's like, I feel like the people that get, I guess, take the brunt of it or take things like that to heart are those who are really relying on someone to get them somewhere. And when that person falls away, all the plans are gone, and then that's when you get a lot of that bitterness where they're just like, man snaked me. And it's so funny because obviously we're always the heroes in our own stories, and it's like, I'm one of those people, I listen to what people say, and almost every time when I hear someone go, oh yeah, man snaked me, I'm like, no, he didn't snake you, he just didn't do what you wanted him to do. Like, he was just doing his thing. You wanted him to do something else, and he didn't do it. So, but because he didn't do what you wanted him to do, he's a snake, or like, it's like, nah, that's not even it.
That's
like,
deep.
But it's a mad. So let's after there was a time where you just went ghost.
You
went gone. and it's funny because I kind of was ghost around that same time, like out the scene a little bit. And I remember bumping into you. I was working
Queen's
at the train
Park,
station.
I think.
It might have been Queen's Park. I thought it was Wembley.
It might, it was Northwest London, definitely.
I think it was, because I was working. It could have been Queen's Park, but I was working at Wembley Station at the time.
No, I think you're right. Or Wilson, but I think somewhere in that.
It might be Wilson. Okay, cool. Yeah, it could have been Wilson. And I remember kind of bumping into you, like, yo, what's good? And I remember because I think it was around that time. It was, so you reverted Islam. And I think it was probably maybe a few years after that. And I think it was like about 2006. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And we had a conversation about it, and it was like, okay, let me tell you from my point of view. Yeah, this is how I felt. Right, I felt
go for it.
Like I was in a bad place at that time as well. So I had kind of gone up. I was always trying to get off the road, And
Yeah, yeah.
but in that time, I'd kind of gone deeper into the road by accident. Not by accident, but I felt like there was nowhere else to go. So at this time, yeah, I bump into you randomly, and I'm feeling like I'm just in the road dealing with some shady people. Like I'm always around Stonebridge or House, and I've met you, and you're just like turned your life around, and you're just on something different. And I remember just after that conversation, it's like, man, I need to fix up. Like, I need to fix up.
That's so deep, man. Wow.
It was a
Wow,
mad
man.
time.
I'm touched, man. It's
But how was your transition?
yeah, life is it's deep, man. It's deep. I mean, life, man, where does one start? It's funny because like my life sort of took a particular route, and then it sort of went like the Fresh Prince from the theme to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I should be able to remember the lyric, but there you go. I'm actually flopping.
My
But
life
switched
turned upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I should be able to recite that verbatim, but there you go. Amnesia's kicking in my advanced years.
It's late.
I did actually see Will Smith perform live once, and when he dropped that, the whole place went mental. But anyway, that was like literally the highlight of the set, doing the theme to Fresh Prince. But yeah, my life took a completely different trajectory, but it was always me being true to myself. So at that point in my life, it was a decision that was the most difficult, painful decision I made in my life. But I felt it was the right thing at the time. It was me being true to my, my worldview, my ontology, my beliefs, my philosophy, etc. But at the end of the day, you're very much who you are. You're a product of your socialization. All these forces work before you're even brought into the world. You know what I mean? So, my life took a particular path, and with, absolute conviction and sincerity, I pursued that path. And what I found is it's sort of just come full circle again. Obviously, I'm back in the music game now. In that time that I was out of the music industry, I was not, ghosting from creativity. I've done so much during that time period. Yeah. So although I wasn't making music, I've worked on a couple of books, one of which I put out the end of 2018, which was the basis of the album that I released in 2019, and a whole bunch more material that I've got coming. So that was a book, Medusa or Weaver in the Absence of Magic. And, I was doing a lot in the whole spoken word scene, which I'll probably discuss that a bit more depth in a moment. So, dude, I was touring, I mean, I did more tours even in 1 year in that scene than I actually did even in the rap scene, which is mad. I mean, I actually traveled even further afield there. So, I mean, like, I ended up doing I went to Malaysia 3 times to perform at arts festivals out there. I mean, so it's not like I was taking a hiatus from creativity and abstaining from artistry. I was just doing it, but just a different manifestation. I mean, I've always been a graphic designer as well. That's what I did my first degree in. So I was doing a lot of work on that front. And I mean, just on that side as well, obviously you've got skills on that front, so how I do all my own artwork as well. Even in the Y&R days, I did the bulk of the artwork then.
I didn't know that, man.
Yeah, that was me. And even Jest, I mean, he's an incredible illustrator, so we do a lot of stuff together. So even his Alcoholic Author 12, he, I think he did the front cover for it, or his buddy he did on his illustration course at uni did that, and then I did the typography in the back, but then working very closely with him. So there's so much creative collaboration on that front, visually, never mind in terms of the music. So yes, I was doing the spoken word, doing my books. Whilst I was doing my book, bro, I was doing a PhD. So I was literally writing my PhD thesis concurrently with my book. So I'd literally be going 2 hours on my thesis, hour on the book, literally going back and forth. And just now I think that was like a mental. I'm quite hard and tough. I have very high expectations of myself, so I don't necessarily pat myself on the back loads. And then I'll get towards the end of the year and you're a proper bad man. You achieved a lot.
You did that.
But then I'll be like, yeah. Then I'll be like, you could achieve so much more. But when I think now, literally I'm in the spot where I'm talking to you now, is literally in the spot I was in when I was writing my thesis. And literally, bro, I'd be on my computer, just going between the two, you know what I mean? So I did a PhD, bro, you know what I mean? So I was like,
crazy.
I've had my work published, my first academic paper was published by Cambridge University,
Right.
which is pretty mad as well. You know what I mean? So I did a whole bunch of work with Cambridge University. So like, and bro, what's deep as well, you know, all these industries now, I worked, before I was in the music industry, I was in the design industry. I've done a bit of work in the academic industry. They're all industries. They all have their own individual politics, personalities, protocol. Like academia is mad. They have the whole little battle scene there as well. You know what I mean? They have their own version of Don't Flop, you know what I mean, and Fight Club there. So, but it's just more passive aggressive.
I think it's funny because there's so many parallels in
completely.
not just music industry, but in kind of in hip hop culture. And I've always found that basically every penny I've ever made, apart from like the 9-to-5 stuff, has come because of hip hop. And there's so many things that you learn in hip hop you don't even realize you're learning.
Transferable skills.
Yeah, and you get to a point and you're just like, oh wait, I've been doing that. I just didn't realize I was doing that.
Bro,
and
that's
just
so
kind of
deep, man.
Learning like I feel like one of the things I try to teach young people as well with music is just the value of the individual skills you're learning while you're doing music. Those transferable skills, how you can use to make money, or how you can build careers off them. So from the music going into writing, you talk about the graphic design, the editing, all this kind of stuff. It's like, I was just telling young people, like, yo, at the moment it's fun, but it can take you to a whole another level. There's a whole world out there,
definitely.
And it seems like
definitely
you use your creativity to literally take yourself to those.
I try, bro. Yeah, I mean, do you know, it's funny because the word that the phrase that comes to mind is editorial process.
Right.
So whether I'm writing a PhD thesis or writing a book or doing some post-production on a video or a song, it's all editorial. It's less what you put in, but what you take out. So those are just skills or concepts that apply in any discipline, man. It's, you know, less is more often a lot of the time. So, I forgot to say, so I did a whole bunch of acting and directing as well, man. So,
I saw,
like, obviously,
I saw a lot of that.
Yeah, so, bro, I got love from, like Michael Sheen, who's, like, you know, proper, Richard E. Grant as well, you know what I mean? So to get, like, love from, like, proper, like, you know, actors is, you know, sick, man.
One of the things that, one of the things that before, you know, when you were doing a spoken word, I remember I actually told you about this. So I run hip hop workshops. I run rap workshops, and so while I was doing one of the workshops, there was a young kid, and he was kind of like quiet, and I was just like, "What do you want to do, like in music and stuff?" And he was just like, "Yeah, like I want to do music, but or like I want to rap." But I just don't want to do it with I don't want no music behind it. And he's just like, it's haram. I just don't want to do it. So I was like, all right, cool. I was like, can I show you something? And he was like, yeah, cool. So I put on I can't remember which one it was, but I showed him one of your videos.
Yeah.
And he kind of was like, he was kind of quiet. So I'm thinking like, I don't know if he's feeling it or not, or like, but he was just like super quiet watching it. Yeah. So it finished. I was like, what do you think? He's like, can I watch it again? I was like, yeah, cool, bro. So he just sat. He watched like a whole bunch of your stuff, and then afterwards went back and was just writing his stuff, and it was just like, there's so many different levels that as a youth worker, it's really hard to engage with someone who doesn't engage in what I'm good at. So I'm just like, okay, cool, bro. I rap, I make beats, I do this. If you don't ain't into that, I don't know how to engage you. And then just to being able to like go, yo, check this out. And then that was it. That was the in. And he was just like, from then on, he was on it.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah, man. So it's just like, it was cool to see. And I remember telling you like, yo, bro, you just saved me there, man. Yeah. Like, it's a whole different process and a whole different way of reaching people. But it's super powerful, man. Super powerful.
Yeah. I think part of it as a performer, you have to be emotionally intelligent. So my first degree was in visual communication, and all these disciplines that I've referenced that I've dabbled in, it's all about taking ideas and presenting them to an audience. But you have to adapt to your audience. Now it's deep because the night you messaged me about that incident with the young person, I'd actually done a poetry performance, spoken word performance somewhere in like it's like Kentish Town.
Right.
And the crowd I was performing to is a much older audience. Now, normally I come with that hip hop energy, whether it's spoken word or rap, there's a particular energy you come with.
Yeah.
But I thought this is just going to be too, I don't want to intimidate them or have it been too OTT for them. You know what I mean? So I sort of dialed it down a bit and tried to communicate my ideas in a way that would resonate with like this older, basically white audience. Yeah. Similarly, when I did another thing, Bradford Literature Festival, not the thing with the young people, I did another set there, and it was a more mature Caucasian crowd, shall we say. But then, if you cultivate those skills and you're aware and alert and you're I can't even say empathetic person, you can read your audience, then you'll know what material will work with them. So again, I think back a few years ago, right, to 2017, like I said, I was doing a lot of spoken word shows at the time. I got a booking for, it's more like a corporate sort of event in Shoreditch. So it was more like a tech crowd, right? So, and this is less about me, but my associate who was performing. So, he's called Low-Key. He's not Low-Key from Leopard Grove, right? Who is another incredible. He's another Low-Key, right? So he was doing a spoken word piece about growing up in, it's called 19 Noughties or something like that, right? Okay. And it's about growing up as a young Black British man in South London in the early 2000s. Right. Now, the way he delivered the poem to a predominantly Caucasian middle-class tech crowd in Shoreditch was such a perfect reading of the audience. So he'd be delivering the lines and then he'd like break the fourth wall. He'd come out of character and he'd offer like this meta commentary on it to explain it for his crowd. So because he was like, I don't know if they're going to get all of these references. Yeah. So he did it in such a charming, disarming way where they don't feel, he's making them feel included and like, just building that bond with them stuff. So it's just, like I think as an artist, you have to have the empathy with your audience. Similarly, if I'm doing something at Cambridge University, that's that very academic sort of crowd. I have to again tailor my language to them. Then, I was doing, my launch party at Chip Shop in Brixton, right? So no, that that's like a hardcore hip hop crowd. So for that set, I had loads of like references to all the samples that have gone throughout hip hop history because I know, they're gonna get this. Yeah. So in my set, I preface my song "Shine a Light" with Smith and Wesson. Right. I shine, you shine. Started the song by playing that. My song "Memory Lane" started by playing Minnie Riperton. Back down memory lane. My song "I Used to Love Her," which is a reworking of the Common song. Literally at the end, my DJ switches it into the Common song. So you know what I mean? It's just understanding who your audiences are, and you're not being disingenuous or inauthentic with yourself. You stay you, but just tailor your material slightly to your audience. And sorry, now I'm talking at length here. There's a really good podcast interview with Jamie Foxx. I forget. It's Tim Ferriss. Ferriss podcast.
I love that podcast.
And he interviews, one of my favorites, man. And he interviews Jamie Foxx, and very similar to what I'm discussing. Yeah. And Jamie Foxx at a very young age, went out on the road performing. Literally, he's like 10, 12, 14. I think he was part of a band or whatnot, playing piano. And I think it was like his uncle or his granddad encouraged him to do it. But again, it took him as, a young Black boy to very, very different audiences. Yeah. And he learned how to tailor his material to, all right, so for an African-American crowd, they might want these sort of numbers, these sorts of tunes, these hits. Now I'm going to, like a more, like a upper-class white crowd in the suburbs. I'm going to play these songs to them. And it just meant that he cultivated this wonderful sense of empathy and that he understood all these different audiences so that when he transitioned from being a young musician to a comedian, again, right, I know that these references will work with these demographics demographics, like, this working class audience still get these, references. It's more middle class crowd. There's a very purist sort of like comedy club crowd. Now I'm going to do sort of like, like it's like a hotel. They're just, they're just not really purist on that front.
But this is like, that's amazing, that you say that, because again,
totally.
When we're talking about transferable skills, so these are like, doing hip hop shows is one of the, it's such a, because obviously when I started doing my first hip hop shows were open mic nights in places where nobody knew me and no one cared. And so what I learned very early on was sometimes the introduction and the outro in between songs is as important, or sometimes more important than the song itself. And learning to, me and my wife had this thing, like, she's like, "Are you going to do your stand up?" And it's like, because that's the bit where you're connecting and getting to being in time, especially being young and doing shows in, I remember a time in Brixton in Mass, and we had there were two gangs in the building, and they were like either side, and it was gonna kick off hard, man. And I remember just having to be like, how do I make them like listen to what I'm saying? And I don't even know what I said, but I said something or whatever, and then people kind of go, whatever. And then even nowadays, when I'm doing stuff with going to schools, I find I love doing school shows, because with schools, number one, everybody, like all the kids are super self-conscious. So to bring them out of themselves takes a little bit, but once you get them, it's you know what I mean, they're gone. And I feel like that what that's actually helped me to do is in moving on to doing more public speaking and that kind of thing. Again, it's like it's nothing. Like I've done all this already. Like I know how to reach, because I've been rapping forever, and it's the same thing. And I always thought it was because some special skill that I had, but I forget. My dad's a preacher, innit? So I watch my dad preach every week for years.
That's so deep.
Yeah, so
incredible.
It's like, and as far as like
big up Pops, man.
And as far as
that's
like
beautiful.
Like that's his thing. And as far as like a speaker, he's always, to me, he's the best speaker ever. Like there's a lot of speakers that are good, but watching him when he's on his role, like he's levels, and it's just you just kind of you pick up on certain things. And
wow, can I come see your Pops preach?
Yeah, man,
I loved him, man. Listen, let's make that happen.
You two would have the best conversation. Like,
I know. Like, I'd love it.
Proper levels, man. But yeah, whenever.
It's so deep. Bro, it's so funny you're mentioning the incident. Mass is at this is all segueing. I should pronounce it correctly. Transitioning very well. Mass was that event that was held in the converted church, right?
It was actually a synagogue.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I may be thinking of something else.
No,
anyway,
same place. I know what you're thinking of. It's like it's in a opposite the fridge, which is electric ballroom now, whatever, electric.
Yeah. So if you're going up, you've gone up past like Black Cultural Archives, you're heading towards Herne Hill, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of in the middle. Yeah. We're talking about the same place. Yeah. So it's funny because when you mentioned that, I just thought of a show. I didn't really reach your levels of increasing the peace in a potentially volatile crowd, but it was in Brighton.
Okay.
And I think so there were a couple of lads that weren't too happy about Dr. Syntax winning like a freestyle competition. So I sort of like intervened. I was like, look, this is what the government wants. Everyone is fighting each other. Like, we have to, brothers and sisters in here, man, we have to love each other. So that was my attempt at preaching the gospel, you know what I mean?
You trying to kick knowledge? Again,
it's
trying to kick knowledge?
It's funny what you're saying, because I heard Doc Brown say something similar in terms of comedy. Like, how brutal comedy crowds could be. He's like, dude, this is nothing to me. I've done rap battles, so like it's nothing to me, man. Like even me, bro, I've had mad stuff happen to me, like when I like, because obviously I say I'm from Leeds originally. I know like people throw bottles at me. Like I did a show in like, I think it was Welwyn Garden City or somewhere like Hertford, one of these sort of peripheral commuter towns. There was some like dudes trying to like waiting to drag me off stage. Like I think they're like tapping on my arm on stage, and like again, me being younger and more like a nicer guy than I am now, they're like my biggest fans. They want to talk to me while someone's stage. Dude, they're trying to like drag me off stage and stuff, and then like afterwards, like like, yeah, what the problem was like, yeah, basically, like, we had some drama with like these crackhead dudes a couple of weeks ago, and they come back and yeah, pulled up, to get us, man. So we can't leave the building. So I'm like, look, we need to get out of here. Blakey was DJing with me. I was like, look, can we just like, guys, like, yeah, the management have like basically locked us in. I was like, dude, is there like a back entrance? He's like, look, we've ordered taxis and stuff. I was like, dude, let me get out of here. You know what I mean? And basically we went, it's like, yeah, apparently the taxis are here. So we went into the car park, taxi. Again, I'm just like, dude, this is just getting loud. I was like, anyway, taxi comes and stuff. We go and go back to the dude's yard to transfer. He's like, yeah, Rodigan was there as well.
What?
I was like, what?
No.
I was like, dude, and I was like, you didn't introduce, like, you made me like, you put me like on the brink of death. And then you didn't. I don't know what was worse, that or like not meeting Rodigan. So yeah, there's been after that, anything in life is easy. You know what I mean? Like public speaking. Yeah. Whenever people say, "Don't you ever get?" I never get nervous. You know what I mean? But I think it's because after that is like, what can be the worst thing that can happen to you? You know what I mean? Like.
Also, it's like it's your calling, isn't it? It's like I'm never. There's certain things in life that I know I'm not great at. But music isn't one of them. So as far as like, I could be nervous about a whole bunch of things, but put me on stage, give me a mic. This is my time. Yeah. And I always see it like, I say this to artists as well. Never be nervous on stage because number one, everyone off the stage is willing you to do well. Like everybody wants to see you do well. The worst thing is when someone's on stage and they're not doing well and you're feeling awkward. You always want them to do well.
It's cringe.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's it. And then another thing is that's your time, man. That's literally your time. And a lot of it's such a gift because not a lot of people ever have that space to really represent 100%. Themselves creatively. And it's like, this is your time, man. Go do your thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. A lot of people in life are not heard. And I think that's why social media is so popular in that it enables one to have an audience, but in a way that has been historically impossible. So you have immediacy of ears or eyes engaging with whatever it is you're putting out. You have potential scale, impact, even, like 20 years ago with the increase in use of the internet was just impossible. And I think we're in a very fortunate position in that, like we get to be on stage and have a captive audience, whether that's 10 or 1,000 people. You can definitely impact even just one person. You know what I mean? Just the stories that we're sharing this evening, I think, are testimony to that. But a lot of people don't necessarily get that. So social media is the only really viable means to have their voice heard. And it's interesting because for me, I do engage with social media, but it's not the be or end all. I try to be savvy with it in terms of content creation, engage audience, but I don't feel the urge to tweet every half hour because it's like I'm not bothered whether people hear my opinion or not, because there's so much noise out there. I'm secure in what I believe. I'm open to the possibility that I might be wrong in my opinions. I can develop and improve and grow as a human being. I'm not going to get into arguments with people now. It's just, I'm too old for that. I mean, it's like really often, when people debate or, have a discussion, then, the concept of listening, people aren't really listening. It's just the pause in which they're formulating their own argument or rebuttal. But they're not really taking in that other person.
That is so true. And I feel like the older I get, especially, not just the older I get, but the more mature, especially on social media, understanding how opinions work. I kind of revel in the fact and I love when I'm wrong sometimes. Like I love being wrong. Like someone goes, what about this? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And they're kind of like, wait, what? Would you? Oh, okay. All right, bye. Because they're ready for a fight, they want to argue, and I'm just like, nah, let me see your side. And I love playing devil's advocate and just seeing like, what do you really think? Why do you really think it? And this going almost full circle on this coronavirus lockdown is such a beautiful example because it's something that affects all of our lives globally, on a like a really acute level. And we have we're all like different countries are dealing with it in different ways. But certain people have an emotional response to people in their countries dealing with it in a different way than the government has set out. And to me, it's like, you're angry at someone who's doing something that the government said they shouldn't do, but in another country the government's saying something else, and you're not angry with them. So then it's like, what is it? What are you really angry about? Like,
That's so deep, man.
It's really funny to see it, man. And like, people just like, use some common sense, have some critical thinking, and really think for yourself. And I feel like that has been totally lost in this new social media era, because what it means is who you are, whatever party you decide, if you're left or you're right, your mind has already been made up. And it's so nuts, because you remember that was it Chris Rock? It was Chris Rock, and he was saying, I'm liberal on some things, I'm conservative on other things, right? But this was so long ago, and it's actually got worse. It's got to a point where no, this is my stance.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't even care what your stance is, because I know what your stance is, because you're that. And or what it's almost like, tell me what to think. We're on the left, yeah. We're the left. We're the liberal side. What should I be thinking? That's the cool.
Completely.
Like, why aren't you thinking for yourself? And we're just seeing it on so many different levels. And I've seen I've seen you like on the political side of things. I've seen you speak on certain subjects in a really educated way. And I feel
Fun
like
tries.
but it's just, I don't know, man. It's just great to see.
I try, man. Do you know what? It's funny you mention all this, because two points of reference I want to signpost the audience to. The Freakonomics podcast. I don't know if you catch that one. Incredible. So there's one, I think it's within the past 2 months, but it was talking about how over the past, say, 30 or 40 years, that there's been a greater convergence between conservatives and liberals. And there are certain, say, key nodes or key points of disagreement, like the lines are drawn. So these are the issues that you have to be, if you're liberal, then this is the key things. And if whereas in the past, there was a lot more overlap.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a very, very, very sensitive issue, but it was talking about, I think, legalization of abortion in America. How
I knew you were going to say, okay, cool, go on. yeah.
But how it was actually certain Republicans who were voting for that and not Democrats. I can't remember the exact argument, and I don't want to present it in an incorrect manner, but I'll signpost the audience. If you go listen to Freakonomics, it talks about it. But over the years, the Republicans and Democrats in America, and I suspect similarly, in the UK, Conservatives, Labour, have become more entrenched in their positions.
Yep.
And there's a really fantastic book that I read, and I used it so much for my PhD. And for me, I put it in the best 5 books I've read, because it just really helped me to understand life and why, as human beings, we struggle to understand each other, and because I find it hard to empathize with each other and work for the greater good. But it's called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. And in it, he develops this cultural typography or typology of a moral matrix.
Right.
And he uses this to explain conservative and liberal positions. And he says that, this moral matrix in weird nations, which is an acronym for Western, educated, industrialized, rich democracies, have a 3-point moral matrix, whereas the majority of the world, geographically and historically speaking, has had a 6-point moral matrix. I'm trying to recall some of these marker points on it. So, for instance, in the West, freedom, liberty, things like that. And these points also exist in the 6-point moral matrix, but then also they'll have like loyalty, sanctity, respect. Some of it, you might call them more traditional conservative values, right? And what happens is that because of our socialization processes and, the echo chambers we operate in, characterized by groupthink, that we often have a blind spot to the other, whatever the other is, right? So there might be these points of conflict or divergence on these markers where a person who is that 6-point moral matrix genuinely, sincerely believes in this value. They've been conditioned into it, socialized into it. It's very hard for them to have a worldview other than that.
Yeah.
Because to break free from your environment, your family, your work colleagues, your education, your economic status, etc. It requires such a level of open-mindedness that, you know, we all have our baggage, our biases, our predilections, etc. So there's this blind spot. So on these, you know, points of divergences, you know, sensitive issues where people, you know, get very passionate in their disagreement, it becomes very difficult for them to accept and understand that that person, their worldview is formulated not out of spite, malice, ignorance, but they genuinely believe it. So, you know, let's talk about Brexit. It's possible that someone may genuinely believe that Remain is a good thing. However unfathomable that might be to someone who is from a Leave background and vice versa. And I think it just comes down to, first of all, having that empathy for a position that differs from our own. Does not mean you have to agree with it by full means. I don't want to say tear it apart or eviscerate it, but, you know, categorize, say, right, these are the points which I would disagree with, but it's possible that someone may be coming from a point of sincerity. And like I say, that comes down to, as human beings, it's very hard for us to read intent. All we see is action. One last thing pertaining to that, in The Righteous Mind, is an axiom, a maxim that Jonathan Haidt comes up with, and he says, group identity binds and blinds. So it's what draws us together, but then it just makes us very insensitive to reading other people's perspectives and empathizing with it. Amazing book.
I agree with that.
Amazing book.
I agree with that 100%. And I'm always trying to, like, check myself as well.
You have to, man.
When it kind of comes to just why do I think what I think? And I'm always trying to see what's the other side then. How could I argue the other side? Why would I argue the other side? What are the facts? Where did the facts come from? What are the stats? How are the stats being read? Like, but then I always feel like I'm in the minority. I don't feel like a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people are kind of they're cool with getting the info from a third party and just being like, cool. That's what they said and that's what it is. And I feel like that it does hurt a lot of people. Man, you know what? We've spoken a lot. We've gone a little longer than I normally go, but we could literally go on for another hour easily.
Defo.
I just want to, like, what's next for you? Like you said, the album's coming out. The single came out yesterday.
El Jefe. So let me backtrack a bit. So put out an album November last year, Anti-Fragile, which actually is a reference to a book I love reading. So it's a book by a guy called Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Again, incredible philosopher, thinker, economist. He put out a book called The Black Swan that predicted the 2008 financial crash. His son, I came across his work recommended by Malcolm Gladwell. Again, if you haven't read his stuff, Outliers, the 10,000 hour practice rule, which he popularized by a Swedish or Danish academic called Anders Ericsson. Read his book Peak, that's really good. Anyway, Anti-Fragile, put that out in the autumn. And literally, I mean, I finished recording that in like June or July last year, and within 4 days of finishing recording, I was working on the next album. And that album is still under work. And basically, in autumn, I began work on another album, which we finished recording. It's so deep, actually. Basically, we finished that in March, recording it. So my guy JLN Julian, he came over from Holland. And the first week of March to record, there's the last track on it is like a funky house track. So he came over to record his vocals for that. And then the following week, I was in the studio, and like it was like a Thursday or Friday, and my friend Fatiha, she's in Holland as well. Ironically, she actually went to school with Julian, right? So she put up this mad like 6 degrees separation. So she put up a post of her doing some spoken word. I was like, yo, that's dope, man. I need to get that on a track and stuff. When you next in London? She's like, tomorrow. I was like, oh. Divine providence. I was like, right, you come to the studio. So recorded her and my friend Amina as well. So they actually do backing vocals on El Jefe, which came out yesterday. Alongside, there's a single. A singer called Svetlana, she's incredible. Check her out. My guy Mad Mo, who's like a Labrador like legend. He does all like the Spanish sort of stuff on it. Although he's actually Egyptian. So yeah, my guy Dan came through us. He was like our consultant, making sure we got like the exact phrasing correct with the Espanol and whatnot. So yeah, that's the second single off the forthcoming album, which will be out later on in the year. So yeah, doing that. Yeah, so that's almost like a trappy sort of beat, like a 140 sort of thing. And yeah, just it's funny because some guy messaged me and saying, "Yeah, I like it, but I prefer you on that." Yeah, it's like your lyrics are well, but I prefer you on boom bap.
I hate it. Oh my god.
Yeah, I haven't responded. I don't want to get sucked into it, and I know again it's from a sincere place, and people love that sound, but it's just like. You like that sound was already dated when we were coming out, like in the UK hip hop era. And like, I remember talking to you at the time, like we'd go to clubs and people would be playing like Sound of the Police, and like answer be playing like Dipset.
Yeah.
And like we'd be like, yeah, Dipset.
It's
Dipset.
crazy.
We'd be loving that. And it's just not. They're not into it, man. We're like, dude, this is sick, and they just want Sound of the Police from like '93.
Yeah, I've actually got answer coming on tomorrow, man. Like we're gonna.
No way, really?
Yeah, man. He hasn't been on camera or anything for so long. But
wow, legend, man.
I had to get him down. But yeah, I get that as well, man. That whole thing of like, someone messaged, actually the last proper single I put out was Practice, and someone messaged was like, yeah, but I prefer your flow on hip hop. And it's just like, I don't even get that, because I don't know where it comes from. Like, I don't know where the entitlement comes from, where someone thinks that, yeah, they might prefer something, but where do you get to tell? Like, I can't, like me, myself, I can't imagine telling the artist, telling Jay-Z, Jay, man, like, I'm not putting myself as Jay-Z, but anybody, anybody, it could be like a kid saying, yeah, do you know what? Nah, I prefer you on the other thing, man. Do the other thing, like dance for me. Come on, man. And it's so funny. This ain't my interview. This is your interview. But anyway, I spent so long.
Bro, do you know, that's what I love about you. You've evolved with the time. So for me, your best stuff is your most recent stuff. Like, just the way you've evolved and your understanding of like this is it. For me, I'm not trying to be the best, right? I'm trying to. It's so I see myself as a musician who happens to rap.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Temple, who's produced like this album that I'll be putting out later on in the year, Lord willing. And he's like, bro, that's deep, because like you're such a sick rapper. I was like, I'm not even trying. Like, I'm trying to be like a musician who writes great songs. It happens that my way of communicating on them is rapping, because that's the thing I'm best at. Although again, on this album, I sing, I think, on 3/4 of the songs I sing on the choruses. The last album I sang on about a quarter of the choruses, and it's interesting because I'd always written for singers in the past, and I've worked with some, big, I worked with Editorial, Martina Topley Bird, who sang on Tricky Stuff. She worked with Massive Attack. You know what I mean? So I've always worked with singers in the past and written for them, said, "Oh, can you deliver it this way, harmonize it this way?" Obviously with their own embellishments. And I might even like lay down a model vocal for them, but I never really put my own singing vocals on track.
Yeah.
2020, you can't just rap; you have to sing as well. Man. And for me, that's a good thing. It's an evolution of the art. It makes you a more rounded artist. You know what I mean? Like, see what Lil Nas X did. For me, it's just incredible, man. Like. There's so many things I can learn from an artist like that. Like that single was 1 minute 59 seconds. Yeah. Even the remixes are under 3 minutes. You know what I mean? And just like bringing that country and western. I mean, actually, there was a 90s rap group that I've forgotten their name now, but they did like this whole country rap album. And it's just like 3 decades ahead of its time. So hip hop wasn't ready for it then. Now, but I just think. Rap as a culture is just
that Deliverance album.
But again, that's the second album, Deliverance, which was more on that country. Again, it didn't do well.
To me, that's actually one of. If I really go back and think about it, that might be one of my top 50 albums of all time. Because that was
totally.
It really it was like that bluegrass sound, and just somebody being out doing something other than what you expect them to do. And I feel like as an artist, for me, that's the pinnacle I want. And it's so funny as well, because I spent so long trying to impress other rappers. And not like trying to impress, but I just wanted them to like my music. I wanted to get respect from them.
Bro, same thing. Exactly
And
the same thing.
I did a song called I can't remember what the song was even called, but it was on my last it was called Karma. So I did this song and it was just basically just me singing, and put it out, and I get 2 phone calls, like not even text message. I get 2 phone calls. One of them was from Kaiser.
Amazing artist,
and he was like, bro, nah. What you did there, that's what you got to do. That's the one.
Yeah.
And I was like, raw, like from Kaiser's the hardest ever. Kaiser's the hardest rapper
Incredible.
ever. Like
incredible.
And the second call I got was from Fallacy. Like, bro, what you're
come on, bro.
What you're doing, that's what, and it's so funny because to me it was like, oh, but again it's like what you said before about just the authenticity, because it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't matter. It's like food. It doesn't matter what you make. You could be making a cake, you could be making whatever, but it's the authenticity of you putting in your flavors, your seasonings, your style, making it together, and it's always going to be you. It's a beautiful
definitely.
thing, man.
It's funny you mentioned Fallacy, because I remember chatting to Fusion a couple of months ago, and yeah, it's so deep, man. You know, it was just saying you have and you always have, you know, you are and always have been you when it comes to making music. I was like, yeah, I mean, to me, I never saw that as a accomplishment. It's like, dude, there's so many people that try to be something they're not when it comes to creativity. I was like, yeah, I guess so. You know what I mean? But to me, it's just so intuitive, man. All you can do is be that authentic you. But yeah, bro, I love your trajectory, man, in terms of your artistry and where you've took it. And, you know, you're one of the few people, I think, from our era that came up who is still relevant. And, like, you know, you could play what they're doing to younger kids and they're not going to think, you know, like, oh, this is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, I feel you. But again, I want to always give that credit. Again, it's the young people I work with.
Yeah,
and it's always, and it's never been. It's funny you mentioned about the Dipset, yeah, because when Dipset came out and we were in a scene that didn't respect Dipset in that way, I'm not gonna bait him up, but there's a rapper who I remember being on a bus. This is how long it was. I can't remember last time I was on a bus. I was on a bus, and I remember him telling me, the worst rapper ever is Joel Santana. He's the worst rapper I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, what? Nah, man, Joel's is hard. He was like, nah, he's the worst rapper I ever heard. And it's funny because it's like, even at that time, I've always been someone who just, I like what I like. And the music I make reflects that. And it's never a case of pandering to a sound. I like the sound, I'll make the sound. And I think that, I guess, like, even with El Jefe, that's like it's a different sound, man.
Definitely. But it's funny because when I heard it, so yeah, I was so Temple, who's done this album, we'd got pretty much all the tracks to get like beats and like recorded quite a bit of it by the end of last year, right? And then I was like, I need one more track. And then we were at this event. It was in this art gallery in Walthamstow, and he was DJing. And then he just spanned the beat. I was like, that's the one. You know what I mean? That's what I need. But it's funny because like I was chatting to Harry Schotter about it, actually. It's like, yeah, it's just super lyrical and stuff. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. I'm riding a rhythm that maybe people wouldn't expect me to be on, but I'm still being true to myself, and it is very technical in terms of lyricism. But you know, I'm singing on the chorus, having fun with it. That's all you can be, man. Just be true to yourself. It's funny actually you mentioned Santana, because someone from a similar sort of strata of hip hop that I had Cassidy following my stories the other day.
Yeah, Cassidy.
So it's mad. I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler. It's mad how there's that space-time compression through, you know, in this digital age, and how you're accessible in a way that, again, it was just impossible. Like when we were coming up, like we couldn't have fathomed getting on the radar of, like, you know, a big name American rapper. You know, I mean, I remember like Kweli was playing in the UK, and like Jess was like, yeah, he said man's like sick and stuff. I was like, wow, like how did Kweli fight? Now it's within the scope, like come on, like Georgia, like Drake, DM Georgia Smith, you know what I mean? Like heard the stuff. go on
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, there might be ulterior motive, I don't know, but but you know, it's within reach.
Yeah,
And
man.
again, there's a good and a bad side to it, because it means that Georgia Smith can get on a Drake album at age 20 early on I mean, Georgia is incredible, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I rate her so highly, you know. But then the downside is that maybe, you know, people that, you know, don't have clean hearts, you know, and want to bring, you know, they can access you directly now, you know what I mean? Like via the comments or DMs and stuff. I mean, I was even seeing the other day on Twitter that, you know, a young lady was saying how she's earning like $130K a year and stuff. And then all these people, you know, who
I saw
just,
that, yeah, man. I
you
bigged
know,
her up, man. I bigged her up. She was nice.
yeah, more power to, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm so happy to see, you know, someone doing well for, you know, for themselves, man. But there's people that want to drag you down, man. So, you know, and I'm sure her intent was to share that information to inspire other people. And, you know, sometimes maybe you have to be cautious with what you put out there, because, you know, not everyone has a heart as clean as yourself. And there are jealous individuals, man, who don't want to see you succeed. So
it's true.
Yeah,
I think
it's interesting times.
Being self-aware, almost like everything you've said today, it almost comes down to that self-awareness, that idea of being true to yourself, knowing who you are, knowing the message you're putting out there, and also understanding that you're gonna have the pushback. And I think it was I think Charlemagne said it before, like or I think his dad told him, like, you're never as good as you say you are, you're never as bad as they say you are. And
that's so deep, man. Wow.
Believe in that hype, and taking it all the way back as well, when you mentioned about the highs and the lows and how things would affect differently, because when you're self-aware and you know yourself, no one can really throw stuff at you, because you know who you are. When I was, I mean, a bad, what did Jay-Z say? Just read a review that messed up my day. A bad review used to mess up, like a bad review used to hit me, man. Now you get like a bad comment used to hit me. Now I love it. I'm like, yeah, cool, man, big up. I'll hit like on that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do your thing, man. Like, because I understand it doesn't affect me. Like, you say what you want about me. My kids are still healthy. My wife's still good. My house is still standing.
Amazing.
Yeah, man. It's
amazing.
Like, it's we one thing we know about you, bro. You're always gonna be true to yourself, and it's a beautiful thing to see, and it's very inspiring as well, because
thank you, bro, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're an artist that a lot of us came up under, and to also be able to see your transition and your change, just following your path. And I feel like, again, you're just living, but there are always going to be people that watch you and be like, you know what, if he can do it, I can do it. And their path might not be your path, but it's going to be enough of that inspiration for them to follow their paths and really just reach their potential, man.
Yeah, that's all we can do, man. Just try. Even if it's one person you've touched in a positive way, then, you know, it's job done. But obviously, you know, we have high aspirations. We want to be as impactful as possible, and, you know, empower as many people and inspire them. It's deep, man. Rest in peace, Ebo, from Foreign Beggars as well, man.
100%, man.
Like, there's someone who I think has inspired and touched so many people. It's become really, really apparent in the days since his passing, man. Like, just how many lives he touched, man. And it's funny, I shared a post about it as well, man. I just mentioned it here. Just, this is what I love about, you know, how music brings people together and we have these shared experiences. So I was just thinking how, you know, like, one of my fondest memories in this music game is touring with Foreign Beggars in Norway. So it's myself, Foreign Beggars, and Dark Circle, big Arnik and Hoika. And it's just sort of like, you know, young men abroad. It's quite mad, but like, Ebo showed up at the airport with a basketball, and I just bowled up onto the plane with his basketball. And then I remember we were in Oslo, I think, and we'd done a show, like, just for hours. He was like, I need someone to braid my hair. He was just like, I need someone to do it. And, like, he found this girl to do his hair. He's just like so happy and stuff. And like the maddest one we did a show in this little town called Bow. So Bow. Yeah, sick, man. But it's got like one of those grammatical, I think, like the two dots above it, or like the line for it. Anyway. So there's a brother, I forgot his name. I forget his name now, but a Norwegian brother who's looking after us. He organized the tour. So it's like the little village that he came from, and there's like literally like 4,000 people there or whatnot. So like we did the show, like all sorts of madness, and basically we're staying. He had like this lodge, like this wooden lodge in the mountains, man. It was huge, Like literally, like one room, like the guest bedroom had like 15 bunks in it. Mad. So we like for like ourselves from beggars dogs, and we're all like shacked up in there, like these cots, like these single cots, sleeping and stuff. And like they had like gathering there, and like basically he hunted a moose, bro. Right. And so we, he had like this giant moose fight that like he cooked for us all and stuff. So like it took like 5 or 6 hours because it's so gigantic, but. Yeah, I mean, so just little fun memories there. It was just deep because I reconnected with Ebo at the Foreign Beggars final show in London actually in November, which was just before my album came out. And yeah, bro, it's just deep for me, man, because I remember coming up on stage and like Pavan was just saying a beautiful thing, like how he felt, how I'd supported them. So I was just like mad touched, man. I mean, because you don't necessarily realize the impact of your actions, but it was just so nice because I hadn't seen those guys in the flesh for a while, so it was just so nice to connect with Ebo there. And like literally, I was literally going through my messages, just looking at, I was just talking to him. Now Sam, I was trying to get him on the El Jefe remix, and he was like, bro, I'm just busy working on my own project, but just so much blessings for asking, all the best for the creativity, so that was only like a few weeks ago, so obviously, man, it's just so tragic and sobering. Man. So it's just, and do you know what, bro? I just got a message from a friend of mine who, again, I've known her for since I was young. Literally almost 2 decades, and got again, reconnected, only a few months ago, and I just messaged her today to say just to check in on her and stuff. She's like, yeah, basically, my dad passed away yesterday. So it's yeah, it's deep, bro. Life is very, very short. And again, another close friend of mine, his son was killed in March and stuff, only 20. So, we just have to really, really make the most of these, very short amount of time we have on this planet, man. And I'm being a bit preachy and stuff here. I don't normally preach, but I just, if there's anything that I've learned, it's just you just have to live every day with a clean heart. Yeah. Be positive. Don't allow anything to derail you. Just every day I try and think, have what I've done taken me nearer to my long-term goals and my dreams and stuff. And just rest in peace to all the people I mentioned, man. Just have to live your dreams, man. Just live every day in a positive way, man.
I think I was doing this I was filming this video one time. Obviously I do event videos. And it was at a bar mitzvah.
Oh, so, wow, deep, bro.
Yeah, man. It was like, so I'm there and I'm kind of just observing. It's the first one I've ever been to.
Wow, that's so deep, man.
So I'm observing it, and then I realized within this room, you have a shared history, a shared knowledge, and certain there's so many things within a culture that are unsaid. So even within a place where you have family members and friends, and some of them don't all like each other, but there's a string that goes through it that holds everybody together. And I remember thinking oh man, I wish I had that. I don't know where. Obviously, you have smaller families and stuff, but it's where do you have that?
Yeah.
And then at the THTC 20th anniversary.
Yeah, big up Gav, man.
Yeah, big up Gavin. And I remember being there and being I was in at that time I was dealing with some personal stuff and whatever. But I remember thinking oh, we kind of do have it in hip hop. We do have it because we do have a shared 100%. History and over this amount of time where R.I.P. Black the Ripper as well.
We just much blessings.
Yeah, man. And it's just it hits everybody, but at the same time everyone comes together. And even if it's just to say, yo, you know what, man, R.I.P. man, and sharing a few stories of times where we met and how they helped and how they inspired, and it kind of puts into perspective that man, it's just we just rhyming words and making some beats and whatever, but there's something so much deeper in it, and we do have this culture is important, and it is a blessing, and it is something to take seriously
100%, man.
and to really understand where it can go, man. But
it's funny because it just allows you to have such life experiences and build connect. Bro, after I finish with you, I'm about to have a chat with my guy who's from Sounds of Blackness, the R&B gospel group from America. Just connected with dude, you know what I mean? He's like based, a brother called Aaron, he's based in Sheffield. So literally, like, I'm about to have a conversation with him. So it's just like, you know, I know these guys from the 90s, you know what I mean? So it's mad who you meet. And like, you know, like Nena Cherry is like an auntie to me, you know what I mean? Like she's someone who I grew up like idolizing, you know, looking up to and respecting. So no, she's such a sweet person. So to develop these like friendships, obviously, you know, yourself, it's a beautiful thing, man. So man. I feel very blessed to have undertaken this journey.
Well, I'm appreciative of your time. Thank you for coming
my pleasure,
on.
bro.
And like, you know, I ain't got to say much, man. Like we talk out offline and
and
you know what as well, man. I have to say, like, you've always from day one, man. You've always showed love, and it's never been about obviously the game is the game, and certain people show love because they see you in a certain place or whatever. But it's never been that with you. It's always been in a place where
thank you.
You've always given more than you've taken. And it's
I try, bro. I try, man. I try. It's
appreciated.
It's just how I am, man.
it's appreciated, and I want to say
thank you. I appreciate that you appreciate it.
I want to say thank you for me, and I also want to say thank you just from the scene in general. Just for doing what you've been doing.
My pleasure, man.
Cool, bro.
Happy to be of service.
Nah, thank you very
much. Lovely, man. All right, thank you for your time, man.
Brother, peace and love, man. Bless.
Peace, always.
Yo, so that was the one, Tommy Evans, man. Once again, I have to thank him for his time. Like, so gracious. There's talking to certain people brings a certain feeling, and if you know me and you know how I've journeyed in this industry and where I've come from, you'll know that Tommy Evans is a very big part of it. Like I said, the first show I ever did was supporting him. So yeah, it definitely meant a lot, man. Guys, thank you very much for supporting. We reached our 1,000 subscribers. We're going to be back tomorrow as well. Helicopters flying out right now. What's going on, man? Hope you can't hear that. Ruining my recording. But yeah, big up all you lot. It's so appreciated. I'm really appreciative of you guys supporting right now. Keep hitting me up, man. Let me know who you want me to talk to, because we're having some good conversations. This has been our longest one so far. And it didn't seem like that at all. Like, absolutely amazing, man. But guys, thank you very much. Blessings. I hope you're all safe. Stay indoors. Stay safe. Big up yourselves. One love.